power scaling in One Piece. Hello One Piece enthusiasts, I'm the One Piece nerd, and today let's talk about power scaling. Well, it's about time, it's about goddamn time, and let's get a move on. So, power scaling, for most of you guys who are casual readers, would just say that no, One Piece doesn't have any power scaling. Well, in fact, it does. It does compared to most of the other anime or shonen manga you've ever read. Because it's very apparent. I'm not going to get into how power scaling exists because that type of video has already been made. I'm going to talk about power scaling and literally sort of justify what Oda tries to say when he gives certain people certain types of powers or certain positions within the world of One Piece and how it gives them an upper hand over others. Before we move on, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. Now that you have, let's begin. Well, power scaling exists in the forms of rankings, in the forms of bounty, although bounty not being the most realistic sort of a way to measure someone's power level, but the titles and the positions that people get within the world of One Piece. Yonkos, Admirals, Vice Admirals, Yonko Commanders, Revolutionary Army. All of these rankings are actually very, 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 very important when it comes to understanding who stands where. So the entire confusion came from Wano when, Green Bull came to, in my head, when Green Bull came to attack Wano when Kaido was defeated. He thought he could take over he could take on the Straw Hats by himself. In fact, he was able to defeat King and Queen, and maybe even Jack. So he thought he could take care of Luffy as well because Luffy's just a new Yonko. He's not even he's a new Yonko. He's a fifth emperor, and well, there wasn't much to his name at that point. He thought he could take him on, and then Shanks came along, showed a little bit of Conqueror's Haki, and Aramaki left. Which is, I'm like, man, you're supposed to be an admiral. Like, what was that? So, all in all, I feel as though the first confusion between admirals versus Yonko should be made clear. Remember, I'm going to go back to Marineford because that is being the prime example of a place where an admiral and Yonko fought. Although, granted, Whitebeard was weak, he was sick, he was not at his prime, but he was still able to take on an admiral. Now, if I were to be realistic, and if Akainu didn't use any underhanded, I'm going to use Akainu to be very specific because these two had sort of the most drawn out fight within the entire arc. I feel like if it's a 1v1 matchup that I will judge Whitebeard against, it will be against Akainu. Akainu being at his prime, I would likely think so, and Whitebeard not at his prime, of course, being sick, although has the powers of Guruguru on me. So, in that case in point, if none of them had any sort of backup, and if it was legitimately one-on-one fight, who would win? I would like to give the upper hand to Akainu because of Whitebeard being sick and old, and because of Akainu's insane endurance. No wonder he became the fleet admiral. Now, when it comes to let's say prime Whitebeard, that would be a different question. I would like to believe that most Yonkos, like Big Mom, Kaido, counting Blackbeard, sure, I'll count Blackbeard in, Prime Whitebeard, Prime Roger. If these guys were to go up against admirals of this day and age, not Sengoku and Garp, but I'm talking about Akainu, Aokiji, Kizaru, Aramaki, Fujitora. If I were to see these guys go up against that, I would like to think that the Yonkos wins. The Yonkos win most of the time, unless it's Akainu versus Blackbeard where I see Akainu winning. Because remember, Blackbeard did say, I'm not prepared to fight against Akainu when he recently acquired the Guruguru no Mi, and even at this point, I'd like to think that Akainu would give the hardest amount of challenge within every one of the admirals to any other Yonko. Especially for, due to his insane fruit and his endurance. And of course his haki, because we don't know much of his haki, but it's definitely pretty strong. So, Shanks is a rare exception in this case. Shanks, well, Aramaki got scared, and I'd like to believe that Aramaki is in that sort of, yeah, he's strong. He's definitely strong, but he's not as strong as your typical admirals. I like to believe. I would say Luffy would be able to take Aramaki on, no doubt. It wouldn't be a challenge. Fujitora, on the other hand, I still like to believe that Luffy would have a very hard time with Fujitora. even with the awakening, because of Fujitora's powers and the way he's been portrayed thus far. So, and of course, Admirals are definitely, in my opinion, stronger than Yonko commanders. At least most of them. Like, Marco could have held his own against Akainu, but I still don't see him winning. I think it could be said for most of the Yonko commanders, even like Zoro. If Akainu were to go up against Zoro, or if Kuzan at this point were to go up against Zoro, I don't really think that Zoro would stand a chance. At least, like, he wouldn't win. It would be a mid-difficulty to a high-difficulty fight, but it would go against that. It will go to the Admirals. Of course, the Straw Hats, if they are at their peak, once at the end of the series, I'd like to believe that Sanji and Zoro would be able to take on an Admiral, which is a very obvious statement considering they will be the strongest pirate crew in the world. So, with that being said, I would like to think the Admirals are stronger than most Yonko commanders, with a few rare exceptions, and that's where they fall. And then when it comes to like the recent revelations between what the revolutionaries had between them and Fujitora and Green Bull in Marijoa, of course, the Admirals are strong. Sabo said it himself. The Admirals are definitely strong. They were just handicapped. They were handicapped because they were in Marijoa. The underlying statement is very obvious from Oda. The Admirals are stronger than most revolutionary commanders, which is why they were faced in such a circumstance where the revolutionaries were able to survive and actually come back alive from Marijoa. If it were somewhere else, and had the circumstances been different, I don't see a place where the revolutionaries actually get out safe. At least that's what I like to believe. Now, of course, certain positions doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get over the top of others. Like Yonko, let's say Blackbeard. Blackbeard, when he became a Yonko, which was after defeating the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates, I still don't think that he had a chance against Admirals. So not all Yonkos are like greater than Admirals. Of course, it depends on their power. And at this point, the point where Blackbeard is, the point where even Luffy is, I'd like to believe they would be able to take on Admirals. But certain Admirals, like Akainu, specifically Akainu, and even like Fujitora in my mind, I do not see them winning against them. Like, maybe Fujitora, alright, I see Blackbeard beating Fujitora. I don't see Blackbeard beating Akainu, neither do I see Luffy beating Kizaru or Fujitora, but I don't even know. I feel like it all depends on power. It depends on power, circumstances, and of course the plot armor used, obviously. Now, granted, Luffy got a huge amount of plot armor with Kaido, which is why he was defeated. If it weren't for that, and if Kaido didn't give Luffy so many chances, Kaido would have won easy, and Kaido, I don't think, would lose to most of the Admirals. Again, all of these goes down to circumstances and power. So, in my mind, I don't see it as Admirals versus Yonkos. I see it's who versus whom. Because everything relies on individual strength, and the matchups and the circumstances also vary. That's my opinion on the entire shtick. I am not a huge fan of power scaling. I'm not a fan of, like, seeing who's at the top or whatever, because that's a really toxic sort of debate. The only reason I made this is because I wanted to put my opinion on it and see what you guys think. Do you guys think that it depends on positions like Yonkos and Admirals, or does it depend on individual strength? Like, Garp is of course an Admiral level, but he's stronger than most Admirals. I'd still like to think that Garp in his prime is way stronger than Akainu ever was. Akainu ever will be, in fact. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. That's my justification for it all, and I want to hear what you guys think. That's it for the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Have a great day, and peace.